It's Jason Myrtetus. It's Brian Smith. It is the pregame show as the Flyers get set to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. 6 games remain in the 2021-22 season, and a little trip north of the border tonight to take on a smoking hot Leafs team, albeit, Bri, without, for my money, your money, and probably the stats money, the best goal scorer in the league over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's it's interesting that now we've got. I think the Flyers have gone from the point where, they play their backup goalie against you to the point where they don't bother to play their best player against you. I wonder if that's going to be a little bit of a motivator tonight, to be honest with you.
Well, he's hurt because he'd be playing because he wants 60 and he's got 58.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
This is a good opportunity to get a couple.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the deal is there, but it's certainly understandable regardless of what the situation is. But it's a team that's got a lot of dangerous weapons anyway. So the Flyers are going to have their hands full tonight with this Leafs club. Despite him not being in the lineup, it's again another good test for a bunch of young players. And this team, regardless who they're playing, they need to turn it around because last few games haven't been pretty for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs right now, they are smoking hot as well. They're heating up at the right time here down the stretch, and if they can just maintain that heading into the playoffs, they may end that 18-year drought of not winning a round. I mean, even without Matthews, Marner, in 67 games, he's got 94 points. Nylander, 75 games. How about 74 points? Tavares, 75 games, 74 points. I mean, you got a lot of guys here. Even Morgan Riley on the blue line, 65 points with 55 assists at this point. Michael Bunting, a rookie, 63 points. I mean, it's wild, the depth that they have. And without Matthews, still dangerous. It is the number one power play in the NHL. It's clicking at a slightly less percent over their last 13 games, but still got to stay out of the box against this Leaf team because you cannot survive the power play.
Yeah, and especially the Flyers, this year, their special teams have been, so far anyway. They definitely don't want to try to tempt fate against a team like this. But yeah, I mean, almost 300 goals scored on the season already, second most in the league. And there was an interesting article today on ESPN.com that Greg Wyshynski wrote along with Kristen Shilton, just looking at scoring this year, taking a deep dive. Why is there so much scoring this year? This is one of the highest scoring years the league has seen in the last 30 years. And then so there's a lot of different theories behind it, whether it's just the defenses are worse at the moment or what have you. But regardless, 293 goals is 293 gols, and the Flyers definitely have not been able to keep up with that pace. They've given up almost that many this year. So, there's something about the upper echelon of these teams right now that just puts the puck in the back of the net all the time. And these guys are certainly no exception. They have adapted right into whatever's going on around the league right now and are taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, the scoring being up this year. I mean, I have some of my own theories, but I'll be interested to read what that article says because – I mean, it's part of the reason why goal scoring is up is coming. I don't even know. Is it just offense is off the charts right now, and goaltenders shrunk their equipment, but that was a couple of years ago. So I don't know that we're seeing the full effect of that all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean they looked at a bunch of different theories, and they basically what they wanted to do was ask a bunch of folks around the game, and so they looked at Is the landscape of the game changing? The COVID impact, unfamiliarity factor. You haven't seen a lot of these. Flyers haven't played in Toronto since December of 2019. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
The talent diluted now with the 2 additional expansion teams in the last 4 years. And then there's the power play too. The power play right now in this league, we've been looking at it the last couple of games, just looking at the Flyers' overall number, how the power plays in the NHL have been way more efficient this year than they have in past years. So, there's just a lot of different ways to look at it right now. Originally the original thought at the start of the season was that defenses will settle down, scoring will come down. It never did.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty crazy dive into what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top teams in the league, and Toronto's the top power play team in the NHL at 27.8%. In the 97-98 season, the top average power play percentage was about 14.5%.
Right.
And that's half of what they're doing this year. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I was reading some of the other coverage around the league. I mean, and I'm not saying the Flyers' special teams this year are any good at all, but we talked about that big number about you want your special teams and your power play to be around 100, and there was a recent article, I think one of the Flyers writers talking about how Ken Hitchcock used to say that. Well, we've gotten to the point in this game where the game has evolved that anything Ken Hitchcock said while he was the head coach of the Flyers is almost, some of it's like out of date now.
Oh yeah, a lot of it is. The players would have told you it was out of date then. Yeah, played for him.
So that is a bit of a funny thing. And again, I can't stress it enough that when you're evaluating anything in this league right now, whether it is whether it's how bad the Flyers have been or how good the Florida Panthers are, you can't look at it in a vacuum. You've got to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what's the league been through here in the past few years? It was from Nick Constanico on Twitter, looking at the Florida lineup. Their top 12 scorers, 10 of the top 12 are having career high years in scoring.
Wow.
So, that makes me kind of wonder, did they catch lightning in a bottle, or are they doing something exceptionally right? I don't know. I feel like Vegas caught lightning in a bottle their first year when they went to the Cup final a little bit. So, it's, again, in terms of looking at it from the Flyers perspective, you got to know for sure what you're trying to fix before you try to fix it. And that to me includes, it's been 2 awful years for this team, but it also has not been 2 ordinary years. You can't look at these 2 years the way you would look at the two random years in the 2010s. You have to be careful what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing too. Like the common denominator when you look at the teams with the top power plays in the league is they all have a really good facilitator out there and a good shooter. I mean, St. Louis with Tarasenko's the shooter, they got some good facilitators there. But I mean, Toronto, Marner, everything runs through him. And then you have that great shooter in Matthews. Edmonton, you have that with Draisaitl and McDavid. Obviously, in Colorado, you got it with extreme talent. And in New York, the 5th-ranked power play. You have it with that quarterback in Adam Fox and the great distribution ability of Artemi Panarin. You just mentioned Florida. All those teams have that. That's that X factor that you got to be able to put on the ice that the Flyers lack right now. To use a term that Chuck Fletcher used, high-end talent. So they certainly need more of that. So they're missing a guy tonight, Bri, in Austin Matthews, who since the 2018-19 season has scored the most goals in the NHL. In 260 games, he has 183 goals. In 284 games, so 24 more games, Draisaitl is second, 178. So, and again, 24 more games. Ovechkin's played 8 more games than Matthews and has 12 less goals. That's some elite company.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to look at the numbers here and see that 13 fewer games than Connor McDavid. He's got 33 more goals.
Yeah.
That's surprising to me. Obviously McDavid, has, the most points in that time frame. But I would have thought they would have been closer on goals. That does kind of really grab you by the neck and shake you a little bit when you look at all that. It's of that 183. I mean, fewer of half of them are on the power play, so 134 of them at even strength too. Looking too at the overall opportunities that I guess you get in a game. He's just under just 1,100 shots. Looks like that's 3rd in the league in that time frame. So he's getting his chances and he's finishing them. The only person that's the only player that's finishing them. Well, actually, not even finishing them is better. But the only player that's capitalizing more in terms of a shooting percentage, it appears, is Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Behind him, he's got almost as many goals on more than 200 fewer shots, or more than 100 fewer shots, I guess I should say. So yeah, it's crazy how he's become that elite scorer, and trying to push this team back to another year where they come out and finally win a playoff series again for the first time since the Flyers beat them all those years ago. It was crazy that it's been that long, but at some point he's got to be able to get him through.
Yeah. Well, he's missing tonight. He has 14 2 or more goals per game, 14 2+ goals per game this season, and he's got 4 hat tricks on the season as well, but he's not in the lineup tonight. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back with more Flyers and Leafs at the top of the hour. It's Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
You're listening to the Flyers
pregame show. Flyers and the Leafs tonight, north of the border. Flyers in Toronto so you said December 2019, Brian? That's what the last time was?
Yeah, it's been quite a long time. There was the front half, obviously, of the shortened season, and then last year they did not play last year with the divisional matchups, and then this year was the 2 games in Philly
Take a look
year.
at Twitter right now. Down 1%
switch,
of 44.63.
Two
Ray
games
Wong joins us
home,
now.
one on the
Ray,
road one
good
year, and then
morning.
vice
You've
versa
been
the next.
speaking to Twitter
It's just
employees,
the way
so
the
I'm
cards
fascinated to know
fell here,
what
and
they
the
think about
way
a
that this
potential
particular
must-take over.
schedule played out that they didn't come
morning,
didn't go
Ashley.
there
There's
till
a
April.
wide
But, yeah,
range
it's been
of
quite some
opinions
time.
out there.
Yeah, geez, that is a while. That seems like a lifetime ago and a pandemic ago as well. It's amazing. Flyers will be in Montreal coming up on Thursday to take on the Canadiens, and Martin and St. Louis behind the bench there. And then I'll return home on Sunday to take on Pittsburgh at 4 o'clock, then head to Chicago and Winnipeg, and then wrap up the season coming up on the 29th, a week from Friday, against the Ottawa Senators. But, Brian, one of the things I talked about in Flyers Daily today was that even though there's only 6 games left, and right now the team's kind of back in a bad way with their recent play over the last week, going back to that Anaheim game that really didn't like that second period, and then that was followed up with that 9-2 loss against the Washington Capitals, and then the 4-0 loss against the Rangers, and been swept by the Sabres over the weekend. So even though there's only 6 games left this season, they got to still come out of it with a slightly better feeling. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but still have 6 games to get some things in order. And Noah Cates had some interesting things to say after the last game
Very quickly,
about teams, winning teams that he's been a part of, and how they have a swagger and they don't change the way they play. And that's one thing he's noticed with this team. It seems to lack swagger, and they change the way they play if they're up or down.
Yeah, and when I saw those comments, the other thing that was kind of jumped out at me a little bit was that he is obviously a younger player in terms of NHL. This is his first year in the NHL.
Worried about the Shanghai factory closure, but you're also looking to see if Berlin's opening up, Texas is opening up, and
trying to
the volume that they're at,
come in and be a good rookie, if you will. I guess he's showing. The question is really, can they optimize more quickly? But not deference, I guess, is the word. But he's not trying to come in and say, "Hey, we're going to do it this way." He's not trying to jump in front of veterans and stuff at all. But the thing about Noah Cates is that he is 23 years old. He's not coming in here as an 18-year-old kid. He played all 4 years in college. A lot of the guys that these days are coming out, after, like Joel Farabee came out after his freshman year. Bobby Brink and Ronnie Addard came out after their junior years. But he played all 4 years in college. And so he's seen a lot of stuff. I mean, he was the captain of his Minnesota Duluth for the last 2 years he was there. The year before that, they won a national championship. So he's got some experience. Obviously, you go to the Olympics and you're in a bit of a different realm as well. Even though it wasn't like an NHL Olympics this year, you're still going out there and playing with a lot of older guys. A lot of American Hockey League players went this year from both the U.S. and other countries. So, he comes into this with a little more experience than I think your average rookie does. And, I think that, again, we talked a lot about Claude Giroux departing. He looked a little different after he left. And people talking about changing the culture and things like that. And I think it's guys like Noah Cates that if they come in here and prove that they're good enough on the ice to earn a roster spot high, that they're going to start setting what forward. And so it's very interesting to hear him say things like that. Just 10 games into his career, you wonder, what that when he might be able to put some of that stuff in practice. Coming into a leadership role maybe a little bit earlier than a lot of people do. Yeah,
and the other thing with him too is what he said was very accurate. I mean, we've been seeing it. And it just, when you read it, and I read the quotes and then went back and listened to them, they just rang true. And I think that, he comes in with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective and has been, like you said, he's not a kid and won a national championship. And a lot of these guys had success at other levels, obviously, because, I mean, they're elite athletes. But I thought that was refreshing to hear him say it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he said it.
Yeah, and I'm not insinuating by any sense of the imagination here that he's going to be like the next captain or anything like that. But when Mike Richards was named captain of the Flyers, he was 23 years old also. So it's not unheard of.
And Richie won everywhere he was before getting here too.
Right.
All the way back in Kitchener and everything.
So I think there's definitely some veterans in there that'll sit in ahead of a player like Noah Cates, but he could certainly definitely become a quick member of the leadership group with this team, and help kind of start a new era, if you will. We've got obviously some longer term players that are still here, like Scott Lawton and Sean Couturier, but you're quickly starting to see a Flyers roster here where there aren't a lot of guys that have been here longer than about 6-7 years. It's very quickly turning into that situation. So it's an interesting time to see what happens here in the off season with who comes in and how this team's formed off the ice as well as on the ice next year.
Absolutely. Let's take another timeout. We'll come back, get you to the countdown to face-off with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates and all the first period action as we get closer and closer to Flyers Leafs. Back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Take on the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto tonight. Brian, let's take a look at the Flyers lines for this game according to the pregame warm-up. All right, here we go. Kevin Hayes going to be centering Noah Cates and Travis Konechny. Then you've got Scott Lawton centering James Van Riemsdyk and Bobby Brink. Morgan Frost centering Joel Farabee and Owen Tippett. And Nate Thompson centering Oscar Lindblom and Zach McEwen. Anything pop out there to you?
It's again, it's not too far off from what we've seen here over the course of the last week or so. Flyers have been taking a look at a few different combinations just in terms of who plays what side and all that. They're going to take another look at Sanheim on the right. Again, I thought he looked pretty comfortable in that role the other night in Philadelphia. He seemed like he was able to shift over there and not stick out or anything like that. But Bobby Brink going out there with James Van Riemsdyk and Scott Lawton, to me, I'd like to see how that develops. Obviously Brink is known for his playmaking, and Van Riemsdyk, on paper anyway, is the goal scorer. So we'll see how all of that tips together. But for me, it's more right now for the Flyers just trying to get through a game tonight where they do the little things right and they don't make mistakes like that 4-player line change the other day, or other bad outlet passes, things like that, because you can't make mistakes like that against this team, or it's going to be in the back of your net. So I think I'd like to see them if they can put together a solid road game, take what the Maple Leafs give them, try not to force anything tonight, and just try to settle down and get this short trip off to a good start.
And as you alluded to, Sanheim playing alongside Provorov on that top pair, Igor Zamula with Kevin Connaughton, and then Keith Yandel playing that third pair with Ronnie Attard as well. We'll see if there's some movement in those bottom four, if you will, defenders with Zamula, Connaughton, Yandel, and Attard. And Martin Jones gets the start tonight for the Flyers. We'll see if Felix Sandstrom ends up getting the game on Thursday in Montreal. But tonight it'll be Martin Jones having to deal with this Maple Leaf team that can certainly score, second in the NHL in scoring. They are without Austin Matthews. That is a big deal. But again, you don't want to put this team on the power play even without Matthews. 27.8% on the season. When you look at the goals for per game this season, they're at 3.86. Now Florida's just running away with it, basically 4.2 goals per game. It's an insane number. And the Leafs are at 3.86.
This team has not been shut out since November 20th. That's their only shutout loss of the year. You go down the running since then, they've only had, it looks like, two that I see immediately, 2 games where they've scored just 1 goal. Everything else is usually 2 or more, and it's mostly 3 or more. You just go back in this course of this month, they've had 1 game where they scored 2 goals. That was their only loss this month. Everything else has been 3, 4. They've got 3 6-goal games, one of which was a loss to the Florida in overtime. But they have been scoring, and they have been scoring a lot. They've put up against Florida 5 goals on the 29th of March and then 6 on April 5th. So they've shown that they can go head-to-head with that team. If Toronto gets through, that's going to be one heck of a second-round series between those two teams. I should say if they both get through. They have plenty of weapons, even with Austin Matthews out of the lineup. So again, it's a situation where this is one of those games where mistakes you make likely end up in the back of your net. So that's the thing the Flyers need to try to limit here tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing with this team too is, even though they've gotten past the first round in 18 years, they have the third highest points percentage in the NHL this season at .697. Only Colorado at 763 and Florida at 760 or higher. And they're going to get a tough first round matchup. They're either going to see Tampa or they're going to see Boston. No easy task on either end of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's across the board too. I mean, one of the things I didn't realize is that, Florida hasn't won a playoff series since that year they went to the Cup final in 1996. So,
these are in that.
I mean, both these teams are due, but you can bet there's going to be 1 or 2 situations in this playoffs where across the board where you're going to see a team that you thought was pretty darn good. They're not going to get out of the first round, and Toronto's just trying to make sure everything goes their way, that it's not them.
Yeah, absolutely. And because if it is them, the fans will be going bananas up there once again. Yeah, they will not take it well. You're right. Stay tuned. Tim Saunders and Steve Coates, they're in Toronto. They've got the countdown to face-off, followed by all the first period action between the Flyers and Leafs. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.